Hello friends and welcome back for another episode of Indie Impressions. My name is Nick, and today we're going to be taking a look at Magnetized by developer RockLeeSmile. This is a hybrid action puzzle game. It's maybe a little bit difficult to sort out exactly what genre it falls into, but it is an outstanding one. It's one that totally lured me in before I really knew what I was getting myself into, and all of a sudden I found myself spending about 20 minutes, and I realized time had gone by, and I was having a fantastic time humming along to the music, and I have not even begun to describe what this game is about. I don't think I'm going to. I think we're just going to get into it, and we'll take a look at it, and you can figure it out as we go. Well, I mean, I'll still describe it. But let's start at the beginning. Obviously, very minimalistic game. There's not a lot in the way of descriptions or things that are very overt. But this is actually the level select screen. We've got a cursor here that seems to light up squares as we go near them. But only the top 5 right now are unlocked because I was just doing the sound levels and happened to unlock those while I was doing them. But then we've got another screen over here, and then another screen over here. And I think there may even be more after that. But let's start at the beginning, so we can understand what exactly this game is about. So here's level 1. We are that little pixel box carrying itself from the left to the right. There's no real rhyme or reason to how the levels have to go, but they do have to have the character exit the screen from one way or another. So we can use mouse or Z to activate the magnet blocks that are off the screen there, and if we catch them at the right moment, you get the right level of propulsion to carry your pixel around the corners. So the other thing is, magnets nearest the pixel will work, so you've got to use that to your advantage and only hit them at the right times. Obviously, hitting the wall is death. It does keep track of every death that you have, and eventually they will add up quite a ways. I've seen people say that they took about 250 to 350 deaths to complete the entire game. In my run, before I did my recording, or before I even did my sound check, I probably got to a little past half the game, and I was somewhere sitting around like 80 or so deaths, so I think I did pretty well, actually. But this is where things are going to start to get a little bit challenging. You've got to kind of judge the distance that you're going around, and also the degree with which the block is going to get pulled. That's probably going to crash at the end, right? Oh, we just made it at the very last second there. So this isn't the whole game, in case you're wondering. This is just the first element of something that tends to evolve little by little, and it takes a little bit of getting used to at first. I think probably the second time that you go through these beginning levels, this looks like the Periphery logo, by the way, but when you go through the levels again, having a little bit better knowledge of some of the harder challenges that are coming up ahead, you'll have a much easier time with dealing with some of this stuff. This is actually the easy stuff, but just learning how the arcs work and trying to let off of it on occasion. You've got to do that, otherwise you're going to smack into stuff. It seems like it would be tempting to just let the thing carry the block all the way around, but there are times when it seems like pulling it, like it'll pull it faster in after a certain point as it goes around the curve. It's kind of hard to describe what I mean by that, but it's like not always 100% consistent. Like with this shape that's coming up, this semicircle, if I catch it at just the right moment, it should carry me consistently around, but it like lets me out a little bit further away at the end than I would have expected to be, but I guess I came in at a little bit of a different angle as well. So this one, the trick is just spin around. There's no other way out of this level, so you just gotta use this to turn it. Oh, that's not quite right. Gotta turn around and go out the other side. So there we go. So this is an extremely minimalistic game, like I mentioned. The reason that I think I got so into it is because I just let myself get lulled into a bit of a trance by the music, and I just started humming along, and I was just kind of making my own beats to things and just, you know, participating in that way, and just letting my mind just sort of take care of the game itself as I was playing. Like, I wasn't really concentrating all that hard on the game. I was just sort of present in the moment. And I think that's sometimes one of the better things that a game can do. It's such a simplistic concept that you really don't have to think very hard about it. You see these dots moving around, and you just know, well, I've got to get it from point A to point B, and how am I going to do that? I'm just going to keep trying until I get it right. In this case, I think it might be a little bit counterintuitive, because you got this big long run-up before you get to the glowy part, the magnet part, and if you keep misjudging it like I'm doing, you end up dying a lot and then having to wait a lot. So there's like a very, very small timing window in this case where you can actually line things up. And again, I know this sounds like it's fairly simplistic, but things do get very, very much more complicated later on. Right now we're just in the like learning how to turn around edges phase. But when you get to the third part, and maybe even subsequent parts beyond that, I actually haven't gotten that far, so I'm not sure, but I've seen a preview video. It looks like you're going to be combining the various colors. There's a blue, a pink, and a yellow, and each one has its own traits to it. So once those all start going, there's going to be a lot of different combined styles of puzzle to happen all at the same time. Oh, that was a little bad. Alright, well, we're not going to make it around that. I actually just find that the level design sometimes is just very pleasing to look at right by itself. It's just sort of minimalistic and nice, just graphically, just, you know, structurally even, as its own self. If this was a composition, this shape could be rather pleasing. Although it's also got that little bit of dissonance, right, in the top left corner, or discord in one way or another, because the ascender and the descender are not actually symmetrical. The way out is actually narrower than the one on the bottom, and I'm not judging this trajectory properly. I should probably take a moment here and just make sure I get the timing right. I think I want it to be like directly next to the pixel when I grab it, or the magnet rather. Oh, no, but see, it doesn't quite work out. Like right there seems like it would be a good angle, but then I've got to let it go just a little bit sometimes. Maybe rein it back in again afterward. No! Still not quite there. I did beat all of this, by the way, on my earlier part. This is just... It's not easy to replicate every single time, although I'm trying my best here. Turn, 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 turn. Oh, I didn't make... so close. And then I've got to release the pixel at the very right moment, otherwise it's not going to make it all the way around anyway. And then I'm going to have to do it again. That could be the one downfall, if anything, is sometimes I feel like these levels might actually take a while to repeat, which, not that it's really that long in the scheme of things, but it doesn't quite have that instant gratification of something like Super Meat Boy where you can instantly retry. You've got to wait through and sometimes set up a curve again, which can be a little bit frustrating if you keep messing up the timing, but really the game is so simplistic that there's not much. There we go. No, hold it. Oh my goodness, I just barely made it there. Level 15. I like these transitions, too, between the levels, and this is where they try to start messing you up by adding extra magnets where you don't actually need them. What I want to do is catch the one right before the final one at the bottom and use that to pull me in a little bit, so to make sure I guarantee a nice curve around that bottom corner. That didn't quite happen. And also notice, of course, that there's a little bit of like almost like a CRT monitor effect going on over the screen. I don't find that particularly adds much to the game, but it also doesn't really detract anything either. It just sort of gives it this feeling. It's almost nostalgic in a way or something. I'm not really sure how to put my finger on it. It seems like the game wants to go for like a hybrid of we're a little bit retro, but we're also a little bit modern, and maybe we're wearing our retro on our sleeve, and it's more of like an homage. You know, I guess that's probably what it is, actually. We're adding this level of superficial vanity over top of it to make sure it's got that production value that you perhaps need to not be dissuaded by if you're someone who would just see a couple of boxes floating around and be put off by that. Because it's very easy to over-design something like this, right? You want something that's super simplistic and super easy to understand and read and intuitive and ergonomic and all of those great words. But then you end up with... Oh, okay, right. I think this might actually be a branching path. Sorry to interrupt myself here, but I want to see if I can pull this off. Because if I can go to the bottom part of this... I'm not even sure if I can actually do that, but if I can go to the bottom part, I might have an easier time on the second part of this. No, okay, it still starts you at the top. That would have been a whole different thing if we're actually setting up a long-term strategy based on our path through the levels. Probably wouldn't be quite ready for that. I'd have to map things out in advance. Anyway, I was just sort of going over the concept of how it's like, really rides the line between it being, really hugs the road, really rides the line between it being obvious on how to interact with, without being pandering, right? Like, it doesn't feel like this is too simplistic, it just feels like it's just right. And I was thinking this is like the perfect kind of game that really goes for iOS or like a touch-based device. Not that I generally am a huge fan of that kind of thing, but I think this game, if anything, could pull it off really well. Alright, so we've reached level 21, and now we're going to get an absolutely badass Mega Man-sounding soundtrack to it. The sound design in this is so good. I always just get really sad when it loops. That's the only thing. Like, I just want to keep listening to the soundtrack over and over again. So you'll see the pink magnets here have a slightly different thing to them. They actually directly pull the pixel, and that's going to result in some very different game mechanics. And you're going to see there's actually some trap sort of things set up in a bit. I think it's the next level or the one after that. We'll see that we'll actually have to start pulling our character around to avoid some, like, I want to be the guy style shenanigans, if you will, and I hope you will. Alright, is it this one? Yeah, alright, so this is one of them. So we've got to use this to time when we go past this block, and it's not that hard to understand the concept, but then we'll add a few extra elements, like this other one here, that we have to pull back on, and then this thing gets in your way. And, well, it seemed like it was way more complicated the first time I did it, to be honest, but we're just going to be pulling the block with these. And then we're going to also eventually be adding another concept, which is sort of like a teleport. And then we're going to mix all of the concepts up at the same time. So it does lead to something greater than what we've got so far. What am I doing for deaths, by the way? I haven't actually looked at that in a little while. See, look how different this is. The level design is actually morphing and changing somewhat now. It's giving me a little bit of like a Thomas Was Alone style sense to it. Oh, barely made it out of that. I don't even know how to solve these problems. I haven't gotten through this one yet. This is the first time I've even played this level. But I really do like this approach, and I think it totally changes the pacing of how the game works. And it's a really good idea that we introduce these concepts one at a time before we start to put them all together. That way you feel like you've kind of mastered each one of them before you have to go and fight them all at the same time. I think it's just generally kind of game design 101, right, that you would do something like that. But well observed. I should mention, of course, before we go any further... Oh, and I've gotten across the other side. I can probably pull myself forward at that point. But this does actually have a Greenlight page, so if you'd like to go vote for this game to potentially get on Steam, I would urge you to do so, and I will have a link to the Greenlight page right in the description, as well as, of course, a link to both download this game to play it for free, or, if you'd rather, just play it right in your browser. So there is pretty much no excuse. If this looks fun to you... Oh, that last one got me there. But if this looks fun to you, go ahead and give it a shot. I do feel like I want to urge you to probably use the keyboard Z key instead of the mouse button, but, you know, to each his own, whatever works for you. But I tried both, and I found that I had much better success with the Z key or Z key, depending on your nationality. I just want to get past it. Oh, there we go. Level 31. Alright, so now we're actually going to start merging it, so, looks like. So we got to go around this curve, and then we're going to pull, and there we go. So I think this is probably a good spot as any to wrap up this episode. But if you can't tell, obviously very, very positive feelings about this particular game, and I would definitely urge that you go check it out. I guess I could go either way on this one, can't I? Go around from the top or the bottom. From the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top, and success. So yeah, go play some Magnetized. Let me know what you think about this. I am curious, of course, to hear your opinions. Oh, I guess this one kind of forces your hand to go in one direction rather than the other. And of course, if you have any suggestions about like what you think this might need to be improved or changed, or if you particularly enjoyed or didn't enjoy one part of it, let me know that as well. I always like to have discussions about this type of thing. I guess I need to get a curve going before I get crushed by that piston or whatever that is. Oh, I guess I could keep bending myself backward like Beckham there, but that's not going to work. Anyway, links in the description. Check out my social media stuff as well if you'd like to find out more about Indie Impressions or about me personally. I have links to my Twitter and various other pages, including my main site for this series, indie-impressions.com. You can feel free to go check out over 700 other games in the series that I've covered. They're all sorted and categorized over there, so if you're into a specific type of game or if you just want to browse for free games, you can do all of that and more over at the site, so go check it out. And please do come back again tomorrow and leave any suggestions or support or anything that you really you want to discuss in the comments, so we've got something to talk about. And, you know, it gets lonely sometimes. I want to hear from you, that's all. But I'll see you back again for another one tomorrow, and I hope you have a fantastic night. Talk to you later.